I just drew the dog sprites for this video and they look so bad. I'm gonna use these in all my videos and they look awful.
Heyo, Toni here. I made a comment about this, it's pinned on the kitty dog video, but I'm going to be making videos about whatever I feel like now rather than just Zelda amvs. So I was thinking about the videos I want to make. I was like, hey, I can make videos about DID. But no, I won't react to people on TikTok. I'm going to react to people reacting to TikToks. Big brain moment from Toni here. I was going to make a video about a bunch of videos, but a lot of the ones I watched and planned to talk about were just kind of not the best to talk about. More compilation videos with little commentaries like, haha, look at the fakers, without really talking about why they were faking. But I did find a good one. It's Repzilla, called Faking Mental Disorders for Views on TikTok. I'm not going to touch on the Repzilla drama here, though, as I feel like it's not relevant to the topic at hand. And disclaimer, this disclaimer applies to all my videos, but I'm only going to say it here. I do have DID. I have been diagnosed. I don't feel like going into details about it, but all information I'm going to say here are from professional resources or is information I've been told by the person who diagnosed me. He is a doctorate in psychology, and in my state, people with doctorates in psychology can diagnose. So I would assume he knows what he is talking about. Anyways, let's get into the video. I'll also link it in the description. And when I say DID in this video, all the same applies to OSDD1. I'm just saying DID for the sake of simplicity. Now, at the very start of the video, Repzilla does make a point that I actually agree with. Somewhat.
Before we go forward in this video, it's important to point out that the subjects we're going to be talking about, well, they've already been proven to have faked their illnesses, so don't go and just start randomly accusing people of faking these types of things, because you don't want to be that guy that does that and then it turns out that they were not faking at all.
Good point, Repzilla. I'm personally against claiming people are faking at all when it comes to DID, because faking is the intentional act of making something up or pretending you're something you're not. Regardless of whether they actually have DID or alters at all, the two reasons I don't like to say people are faking is because you never know what's going on inside their head, and because you're going to piss them off. If you go to someone who is claiming to have alters and are like, hey, you don't have that, when you are not their doctor, you're either going to really hurt them if they actually do have alters, or make them really angry if they don't. So it's best not to call out fakers at all, especially if you don't have alters yourself. Repzilla talks about an article on the Good Morning America website for a while, about how apparently doctors are noticing an influx of teenagers who think they have disorders like dissociative identity disorder. And not a single person that worked on this article, from what I can tell, is a doctor, other than Ethan Cross, a psychologist who they interviewed, who seems to know his stuff. I haven't read his book, and there is no way I am reading it for this video, but his opinions seem to echo that of my psychologist and psychiatrist when I brought up being worried I was one of these Gen Z fakers. They asked me how long the symptoms had been going on. I said since I was 6 or 7, which is kind of the hot spot for DID forming according to some sources. Again, not going to go too in-depth about my own personal life, but Dr. Cross seems to know what he's talking about, even though in the article he actually says very little. Note that Repzilla completely cuts out everything Dr. Cross says, though, only focusing on what Good Morning America hosts and the TikTok user they got on the show said. I'm going to skip the sections about ticks and roses and Necobite, because they don't have dissociative identity disorder. I'm sure there's plenty of misinfo in those sections, but that's for someone else who is not me to cover. Now on to DID, and yes, it's DID, not DID. Let's see what Repzilla has to say.
Stated in the Cleveland Clinic, DID is very rare. The disorder affects between 0.01 and 1% of the population. It can occur at any age. This disorder is often misdiagnosed and requires multiple psychological evaluations and assessments to get an accurate diagnosis.
Okay, so the first article he uses from the Cleveland Clinic already has misinformation. DID does not form at any age. Different sources I've seen say different things, but nearly everyone, including my psychologist, seems to agree that the general rule of thumb is that you cannot form DID after 10 years old. DID is formed by repeated early childhood trauma, nothing else. Doesn't matter what the trauma is for the most part, it just has to be repeated enough and traumatic enough for the child not to only develop CPTSD, but also have disorganized attachment. CPTSD stands for Complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and disorganized attachment, as defined by choosingtherapy.com, is rooted in unpredictable and inconsistent behavior from caregivers during a child's formative years. This insecure style of attachment develops when kids are raised in an environment that elicits fear, often involving abuse or lack of reliability. So, DID is most often formed from abuse, usually from caregivers under the age of 10. It does not form at any age.
Start off by saying that self-diagnosis is extremely valid. Not every psychologist or therapist, especially in the US, has all this information on DID.
Oh, I see. The TikTokers are self-diagnosing themselves. That makes sense.
So, Repzilla briefly covers self-diagnosis, so I guess I'll give my opinions on that. My thoughts on this are all over the place, but basically, I think it is a valid option in 2 cases with DID. If you plan on getting a diagnosis and use the self-diagnosis to explain your symptoms or as a temporary label until you get that diagnosis, or if you can't get diagnosed for one reason or another. There are lots of people who can't get diagnosed with dissociative disorder due to a lack of psychology doctors, trauma specialists, or psychiatrists in their area. Not everyone is as privileged as we are over in the USA. A lack of funds, or other reasons like, systemic oppression, getting your rights taken away, all that jazz. I wouldn't say I self-diagnosed with DID before I got professionally diagnosed. If you've seen my kitty dog video, I talked there about how learning about OSDD1, I thought I had that, and how once I started talking to my psychologist about it and doing a buttload of research, we both came to the conclusion that I had DID and not OSDD1. I never really said I had DID or OSDD1 before I got diagnosed, just that I thought I had it. Turns out I did, so in that case, however you define what I did, it was helpful to me because it led to me getting the diagnosis.
This dude's alters are South Park characters, and they're reacting to a touch on the face.
We watched the South Park face-holding TikTok, which seems to be a favorite of a lot of people reacting to DID videos. He doesn't say much about it, though, so I'm not sure on his thoughts, but yes, it is possible to have South Park alters. I hate South Park just as much as the next guy, but if your brain sees a South Park character as something that can help in any way to cope with trauma or stress going around you, it can interject them. Introduction is a topic for another time, but while it isn't impossible to have South Park alters, you really need to stop watching South Park. It's bad. It's really bad.
Some of these people have non-human alters where they're like they're dogs.
Now on to non-human alters. Those are possible too. I technically count as one. No, the channel name is misleading. I am not a Loftwing. I am actually a Hylian from The Legend of Zelda. Basically a human with pointy ears. Non-human alters, interjects or not, form for the same reasons any other alters do. The brain cannot handle the amounts of stress or trauma that it is going through, so it splits off another part or alter to hold those memories of stress and or trauma. Also, I just got to the part where Repzilla promotes a guy who supports Blair White and not Black Lives Matter. I couldn't actually find the video he's showing to watch it, but God, Rep, really? Fucking really? Do your research before getting someone a platform, dear God. Why does Brad Palumbo look like Drew Gooden's crazy brother?
I'm married to one of my other system members, and not only is this adorable, but oh my god, I feel so seen and accepted. Somebody said, my apologies if this comes off insulting in any way, but do you mean you're married to one of your own alters? How does that work? Not trying to be rude, just genuinely curious, and if you don't feel like explaining, that's totally fine. Another person who is 100% faking did is Two Souls, One Body. I'm not sure their real name. This person has alters named Jesse and James, yes, like from Pokemon. And they claim to be in love with each other. Two souls, one body.
Can you be married to another alter in your system, or date one? I can't find any medical resources on this, so you just get to hear my opinions. This is possibly going to get me my ass ripped, but I'm currently in an in-system relationship. I've dated outside of the system before, and trust me, it's way different, because your partner alter is not always going to be in front. Sometimes due to amnesia barriers, you can't communicate at all. But from what I've heard, dating in system can help lower amnesia barriers between two alters, and ultimately that is the goal with DID recovery, is to lose amnesia barriers so you can either function as a whole or become a whole. Again, this isn't backed up by anything. This is just me talking about my personal experience plus what I've heard from others. If I'm wrong about this, let me know. Rip me a new one, I can take it. Even though I am in an in-system relationship, the two souls, one body discourse makes me want to vomit. So I'm going to cover this very briefly.
In the small amount of research that I have done on DID, disassociating is a very mentally draining thing that happens, and it's not something that you're going to be doing on a whim to kiss yourself.
Repzilla is right. Dissociating is very mentally draining. I'm going to take something from Spockter here, subscribe for a video about him at some point, and say that it's like what I imagine being drunk is like. I have never been drunk. Baby Toni. It's like being constantly disoriented, staring off, losing yourself in your own thoughts, or just in the environment around you. Sometimes you're so dissociated you can't tell the difference between dreams and daydreams from reality if you did something or just thought about doing it. So yeah, it's pretty not fun. I am not going to talk about Two Souls, One Body anymore, because I doubt Repzilla is going to cover the endogenic thing, and I'm not going to talk about OnlyFans because gross. So I actually didn't think of a conclusion to this video. I'm looking at my script and there's just nothing. So I don't know how to end this video. I guess I'm just gonna say what I usually say, which is stay safe, try to heal yourself, and do your research. Okay, bye.